Monday Night Football is the Jets and the Bills, plus we've got a Week 6 recap for you. It's the FTN Fantasy Schatz and Tanier NFL podcast. I'm Aaron Schatz from FTN Fantasy. He's Mike Tanier. You know his Substack at miketanier.substack.com. We are going to talk about the NFC East. We're going to talk about the NFC North. We're going to talk about rookie quarterbacks making their first starts. But first, let's talk about our sponsor, and that is Underdog Fantasy. The NFL season is back, and there's no better way to celebrate than with Underdog Fantasy. Underdog Fantasy is the easiest place to play fantasy sports and the fastest growing app in the industry. Underdog is now offering a new customer FTN special with up to $1,000 on your first-time deposit. The app is easy to use, and weekly contests such as the onside kick, the double doink, and the 2-minute drill are back. Head over to Underdog for a deposit match up to $1,000 when you sign up using the code FTN. That's up to $1,000 extra. NFL season is in progress and rocking, and there is no better way to celebrate than with Underdog Fantasy. So, interesting week in the NFL, Week 6 favorites. One big, very few close games this week.
Yeah.
The only game where a team had lower than 80% post-game win expectancy was Bengals-Giants, of all things.
Yeah.
Bengals were at 52%. That game was closer than the final score looked. But, I mean, it wasn't until that final touchdown by...
Right, it was 10-7 until late.
Right, it was 10-7. So.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the NFC East. So, first of all, here are the current playoff odds from our playoff odds report. Commanders win the division 51% of the time. Eagles 26%. Cowboys 21%. Giants 2%. Let's talk about, who do you want to hit first, the Cowboys or the Eagles?
I mean, hearing this and seeing right now the Commanders are at plus 120 to win the division. Eagles are at plus 135. And from a wagering standpoint, I see a lot of Panthers and Jaguars on the Eagles' upcoming schedule.
Yeah, our numbers just don't like the Eagles as much as other advanced metrics seem to like them, partly because of the preseason projection that we had the Eagles lower than everyone else, but they've played down to that. The Eagles are 21st. They are 21st in DVOA. They are 26th on defense. They have played more like our preseason projection than like everybody else's preseason projection. I don't know if that'll continue. You're right about the schedule, but still... they're not playing great. I mean, they beat the Browns by more than the final score. It was 20-16 because of a blocked field goal return for a touchdown. That's a complete fluke play.
Right. That's a 10-point swing right before halftime. But I'm watching that game. I know this team keeps doing that. The Eagles keep doing that. That was like this non-repeatable play that shouldn't have happened. They keep happening. And I agree. The Eagles are playing down to our worst projections and like the worst nightmares of like anxious Eagles fans. And even yesterday, I mean, the Eagles won in part because Deshaun Watson really is that bad.
The Browns are the worst team in the league right now. I mean, the only reason why they're not the worst team in the league by the Dave ratings is because we had their defense projected really good before the season. And there's still like that, the defense should be better than this. Like over time, the defense should be better than this. Their offense is horrific. It's just horrifying.
Right. Their defense is Myles Garrett and Denzel Ward pretty much at this point. So they can shut down one cornerback and they can rush the passer or get a block kick from Garrett. Everything else is kind of taffy pulled because they're on the field forever and they're pressing and they're not quite as good as all that. The offense is absolutely remarkable. It's hard to describe. Doug Farrar wrote about how, and I think Bill Barnwell also mentioned it, back-to-back weeks, Deshaun Watson avoided an interception by throwing a ball that was so bad that two defenders smashed into each other trying to make the interception. That's what you're down to. The positive plays for Deshaun Watson are plays where it's so bad that the defense cannot execute because too many guys are like little leaguers hammering into each other.
Right. So I don't know how much you learn about the Eagles from what is effectively a 23-9 win over the Browns, right? Because it was 20-16, but if that field goal is blocked, then it goes through. It's 23-9, but still, you should be beating the Browns by more than that. You should be beating the Browns by more than that.
Exactly. Meanwhile, the Commanders played a loss, but against a great Ravens team, in which they hung in that game.
Yep.
There's nothing that you look at from the Commanders and say, well, this exposes them as fraudzilla, fraudity, fraud. No, they're not. They lost to a superior team. But
I think their offense is as good as we seem to think it is, and their defense is as bad as we seem to think it is. I mean, the Ravens are the number one offense in the league right now, but that doesn't mean the Commanders' defense is good. You know, it's not the worst thing to let the Ravens put 30 on you at this point, but if you look at the rest of the season, except the Cardinals game, the Commanders' defense is bad.
They got nothing in the secondary. They don't have really solid edge rushers. Everything's kind of up the middle with the defensive tackles and Wagner and Luvo.
And one of them's injured now. John Allen, I think, got injured yesterday.
Allen got injured. I didn't see much of Luvu yesterday. I don't know what was up with that. But, yeah, so you can attack them on the perimeter. When you can attack a team on the perimeter, you can attack them. They look like a playoff team. I believe they're minus 220 to make the playoffs. And, you know, that they've earned it at this point.
Yeah, I will say I went and looked up. The 2013 Chargers are the last team to be top 3 offense and bottom 3 defense.
Is this like North Turner era?
And I think that is North Turner era. Yeah, the Commanders are right now 28th in defense, but they definitely could be a top 3 offense with the bottom 3 defense by the end of the year. Useful Title asks, are we still waiting for the Kingsbury second half of the season fall off for the Commanders? Yeah. That is a little bit of an asterisk on this because, you know, I mean, you don't want to believe that that's a trend, but it goes all the way back to his college teams.
Mm-hmm. Right.
That his offenses constantly fall off in the second half of the season.
And so much is formation based. And when you show all your formations over the course of a couple of games and you're running the same stuff. I saw little signs of it yesterday. I mean, part of it is the Ravens defense is extremely disciplined and executes well, but they kind of knew they could bait Daniels into throwing a ball into the flat to Eckler and McNichols and have 2 defenders converge on it. They could show him something and then turn around and do something predicted that they could predict and stop. That's going to happen with any rookie quarterback, no matter who the coordinator is. But these are the little signs that there's going to be a little drift downwards. And maybe their defense also drifts upwards, though, because there's not much further down to go.
Light that burns them says, weren't the 2017 Patriots a top 3 defense with the bottom 2? I think you're switching that around. You mean a top offense with the bottom defense. And no, their defense was not as bad as it looked in the Super Bowl.
Right. That defense during the year was okay. But the Matt Patricia effect, we remember things differently.
We've got a Drake May question. We are going to get to Drake May.
We got to get there.
We're going to get to Drake May and Spencer Rattler in a little bit.
They're coming for me.
Slam and Jammin 87 says, can we stop hating on Kingsbury? He has a better coaching staff now in Washington than he had at Arizona. Right. The reason why the Kingsbury thing is a deal is because it goes back to college. It's because it goes back to Texas Tech.
Yes. And to last year at USC, that was not a good offense. You know, Caleb Williams makes plays off of structure. That's what he does specially. That means that the structure wasn't necessarily coming through for a team that fell off from its previous year.
So we feel the Eagles are not living up to what they should be. The Commanders were giving hosannas despite a loss. The Cowboys, oh my God. Everything that could, I mean, mea culpa. I thought I went to the season going, Cowboys have gone 12-5 3 straight years. They're going to go like 12-5 this year, and then they're going to lose in the playoffs again. No, they're not. They're 24th in DVOA, and they would be even lower if they didn't have the best special teams in the league. It's clear that the salary cap and the not signing guys has caught up to them in depth because without Brandon Cooks, there's no one who can really get open other than CeeDee Lamb.
Yes.
And without the 2 pass rushers, there's not enough for the defense to play well, despite, I mean, Deron Bland hasn't come back yet, but, despite Trayvon Diggs being there.
Right.
It's Super Glucose says he loves seeing an Eagles fan giggle at the Cowboy failure. I mean, I think the Cowboys are a very hated team by a lot of people, starting with Detroit Lions fans who feel pretty strongly. I mean, they were clearly trying to troll the Cowboys by putting in offensive linemen as much as possible as eligible receivers near the end of the game and lateraling to Penei Sewell on a pass that got nullified by a penalty. Dallas, I mean, they look screwed. They should be better than, I mean, over time, they should be better than this, but not what I expected before the season better, more like 14th better.
Right. They should be getting Parsons back. That's going to make a difference, obviously. You know, when you get Parsons back, you're going to beat your Giants again. They've got, I think, the Panthers coming down the road and some other teams. But, yeah, they face the 49ers very soon. They are not ready to face the 49ers.
I think they have this week off, and then they face the 49ers.
And then, it's a bye week, and then the 49ers. And I don't care how many of these guys they get back. And, again, they are injury-riddled on defense. This isn't a team that looks like it's got what it needs on either side of the ball. You're right, except for special teams, to compete with the true contenders. And we saw that yesterday.
I mean, you even said in walkthrough today on your Substack that it's like the whole team seems to have quit except Kevon Turpin.
Yeah, him and the kicker.
Kevontae Turpin clearly has not quit. Like,
right.
He's still rocking it. And Aubrey, but I mean, they're good at kickoffs as well as field goals. And as good as you can be at kickoffs these days.
And field goals. But like at the end of that game, even when they put Rush and the other guys in, it was just everything was flat. Like the backups weren't going out there saying, well, let's get 6 on the board here for pride or anything else like that. That was a team that quit. And again, there's a difference between saying we're without Tank, we're without Kendricks, we're without Bland, we're without Micah, we're without Cooks. You take a loss by 10 points to the Lions. That could have been a 60-point loss if the Lions weren't trolling in the second half.
Finally, talking about the NFC East, are the Giants bad? Or are they just mediocre? They're 23rd right now. They're 20th on offense and 17th on defense. Their defense played pretty well considering how good the Cincinnati offense was going into that game last night. The only touchdowns they really allowed was that kind of fluky scramble and then way at the end of the game.
Mm-hmm. You know what? They have a great front four. They really do have a great front four. Burns is good. Thibodeau is good. They got Dexter.
Although Thibodeau didn't play this week. He's out a couple of weeks.
Didn't play. But, the guy from years ago.
DJ Hill. But he's on Cincinnati now. Sorry. I was thinking he had a really good game, but he didn't have it for the Giants. Right. Dexter Lawrence, obviously.
Yes, he's been blowing things up.
It was awesome.
So that front four gives them a little bit of an equalizer. But, I mean, I would call them bad, not mediocre. But their win total over-under right now is at 5.5.
Ojulari is the guy you're thinking of.
BJ Ojulari from a couple of years
Aziz. BJ is his brother, plays for Arizona. Aziz Ojulari.
I'm just going to quit now because I'm completely turned around. 5.5 wins is the over for the Giants. I'm wondering, I think he can find 6 wins.
Hitchhiker's Pie feels like that they exposed Orlando Brown a few times. Well, yeah, I mean, but that was Burns, right? Burns exposes everybody, right?
Yeah, Burns is really good. People lose track of the fact because he was on the Panthers for so many years.
I was having an argument with Tyler Lochner from FTN because I talked about Derek Carr being a B- quarterback, and he said that's like the worst thing you can have. And I said, I feel like the worst thing you can have is a C- quarterback like Daniel Jones. Like it's because it's still like you're still like not sure if you should replace him, but unlike like Derek Carr, who's clearly just like a little bit above average, like Daniel Jones is clearly like below average, and like, yeah, what are you gonna do about it? Like,
and then 5 or 6 years of age difference, where the B- is an older guy, and you're like, well, we know the replacement schedule is coming in. It's due to rotate the tires. Whereas with Jones, you can keep fooling yourself. Well, maybe he's still a prospect or something like that. I am looking at the schedule though. I can find 4 more wins for the Giants. I see a Panthers game. I can see them splitting with either the Eagles or Washington. Ooh. Okay, it's tough. Never mind. Consider it though.
Yeah. So you think more bad than mediocre?
I think more bad than mediocre. Yeah, you're seeing like peak Daniel Jones right now.
Yeah, you are seeing peak Daniel Jones right now, and it's not that great.
No.
Let's talk about the NFC North too. And a reminder, if you're watching us live, which we do Mondays and Thursdays at 11 a.m. Eastern, you can ask questions and make comments. We've given some of them already. Here's the playoff odds currently for the NFC North, and this is adjusted for the Aiden Hutchinson injury. Vikings 55%, Lions 28%, Packers 13%, Bears 4%. Currently in DVOA, the Vikings are 1, the Lions are 2, setting up a DVOA bowl this week of 1 versus 2.
Yes.
Packers are 8, and the Bears are surprisingly 17th. They've had a very easy schedule so far.
Yeah. We mentioned it in the email. There's a little bit of an overreaction. I think Caleb Williams is improving.
He's absolutely improving. Like, even if you adjust for the defenses he's played, there's no question. His last 3 games are positive, and his first
Right.
3 games were negative. Like, I mean, absolutely improving every week. Yes.
Right. But there is some helium mixed in when you look at a Jaguars defense that began quitting sometime in the second half yesterday, mixed in with a Panthers defense. I think people have lost track of how many guys they've lost to injuries there because, it's the Panthers and we just lose track of them. And that team can't play defense, and that has helped Williams a little bit.
I mean, the Bears are only at 4% because they're only 17th in DVOA, and their schedule is the hardest in the league the rest of the way by average DVOA of opponent. It's not that hard the next couple weeks. They have Washington.
Yes.
So Washington is
Rookie Bowl.
Great offense, bad defense. And they play the Patriots. There's one other team, Carolina, I think maybe, or someone who's got a bad defense. Then in the second half of the season, I believe that they play all 6 division games and San Francisco.
Yep, that is correct. Yeah, so you have this tough division, and we're going to talk more about the Packers, Vikings, Lions. Packers, Vikings, Lions, Niners, Vikings, Lions, Seahawks, Packers.
That's hard.
Yeah, the Seahawks are your break, and while I'd like to troll them a little bit, they're not a bad team by any stretch.
No, that's an average team, and that's your break.
That is very difficult. So, yeah, enjoy it now, and enjoy the fact that your rookie quarterback is showing progress, because that's the main thing.
The Lions are up to 3rd on offense and 4th on defense. But Aiden Hutchinson is a big loss. I said on Twitter yesterday, this is probably, I think, if you consider not just how good a player is, but how good his backups are.
Right.
This is the biggest possible defensive loss for a playoff contender. Because, people were like Chris Jones. Yeah. I like Mike Pennell more than I like the Lions have already had injuries at this position. So it's down to like Josh Pascal and James Houston, who's like a poor man's Bryce Huff, can't play the run. Like
the Steelers, for example, have all these
big
complementary. If the Steelers lose Watt, they've got Highsmith, they got Herbig, they've got all these complementary guys. There's not much there. I hate doing trade deadline speculation, but the Lions have to get out there.
So I did it. I did the trade deadline speculation.
Okay.
And I went and looked for the problem with trade deadline speculation in the NFL. Is, first of all, that teams always feel like they are a year away from contending.
Right.
So they're not going to trade guys who have 2 or 3 years on their contract. People kept saying Max Crosby. The Raiders aren't going to contend for. The Raiders don't think that way.
Yeah.
The Raiders think they're a year, get a rookie quarterback next year who turns into Caleb Williams, and suddenly you're contending, right? So why get rid of Max Crosby with 3 years left on his contract?
Right.
If you look at teams that might think they're out of contention, crossed with players who are going to be free agents at the end of this year, crossed with edge rushers, you end up with Dennis Gardeck of the Cardinals.
Oh, wait a minute. What about Trayvon Walker down in Jacksonville?
Is he a free agent next year?
I think they extend his rookie contract. But,
Hitchhiker's Pie says Clowney is on a 1-year contract and playing for the Panthers. Okay. I didn't see that. All right, that works.
He's hurt. He's injured.
He's injured? Well,
he's injured right now.
I mean, obviously, Hassan Reddick, you try to read Hassan Reddick's mind.
You try to call Hassan Reddick. You try to find him. No one knows where he is. His agent and his father are having fights somewhere down the street from me. I have no idea where Reddick is.
Camden Cap says, can we save Myles Garrett from the Browns? If you want Browns fans to really riot on that team, sure. If you're the Browns, you would not do that in a million years unless you were planning to move to a new city with a new fan base. That is not a thing that you can do.
There's always an old edge rusher out there playing for one of these bad teams, like James Houston.
I mean, Emmanuel Ogbah.
Yeah, that's what we're looking at, and the idea that that's going to replace Hutchinson in a meaningful way is kind of a pipe dream. But it's somebody that you can put into your rotation to try and firm this up.
And I mean, the Vikings-Lions game will be really big next week. I mean, obviously, because the Vikings defense is historically good and the Lions offense is great. And I mean, Brady, my God, was Brady gushing on that broadcast about the Lions offense and Ben Johnson. Just how much he loves Ben Johnson and how much he loves that they can do everything. And they can. I mean, they had this great choose your own adventure graphic about you could choose between you've got Laporta, and then you've got the two running backs, and then you've got Jameson Williams, and you've got Amon-Ra St. Brown doing very different things. And Tim Patrick had a nice game, and it's very strong, but it's the Hutchinson loss is huge.
And all of that, what I keep hearing is it's the offensive line. It's the offensive line. It's the offensive line.
Oh, it is the offensive line too, yeah.
Especially against a beaten up and super thin Cowboys team last week. But over the last couple of weeks, they have beaten the Seahawks. The Seahawks were missing a bunch of linemen. You just steamroll those opponents, and then you can dictate and you can talk about how Tim Patrick and these guys are like good complementary pieces because you're just winning at the line of scrimmage. Did
you have something you wanted to say about the Packers? I mean, the Packers are good.
Packers are good. Love was just putting on this like highlight reel clinic for like the first half and then kind of stopped. But they're good. I
want to point out they benched Eric Stokes, the cornerback, meaning Keyshawn Nixon is now one of their top two corners. Keyshawn Nixon, whenever I say he has good coverage stats, Packers fans get so angry at me. So again, I'm going to make the call for Packers fans. Please send me video of Keyshawn Nixon getting beat, so that I can compare it with our database and fix it if we're wrong. Right. Because otherwise, Keyshawn Nixon has had a really good year.
And keep in mind,
he gave up a touchdown to Alec Pierce. That's the video I've seen, right? Well, we've got that one. All right. But,
guys,
everybody gives up a touchdown. Christian Gonzalez gave up one yesterday. So
right. Deion Sanders gave up 2 or 3 in his career. It happens occasionally, right? And he just got inserted into the starting lineup by his coach, the guy who works with him every week. So.
All right, let's talk about the rookie quarterbacks who got their first starts yesterday. Hitchhiker's Pie quickly wants to know if the new cornerback coverage DVOA accounts for the receiver they are defending, and the answer is yes.
Ooh.
And whether that's a slot or wide. It accounts for both those things.
Nice.
Drake May had 14 DYAR, which was 19th on the day. Spencer Rattler minus 66, which was 26th. So we'll start with May because I was at the game, and I saw a lot of May. He was inaccurate, but every few plays, there was a play that made you go, that's it. That's the future right there. Whether it was getting out of pressure to make a play or that 40-yard big boy throw to Keyshawn Boutte right before halftime, which was beautiful. And, talking to some people, the feeling is that some of the inaccuracy was a lack of practice with the receivers, that if he's the number one quarterback for the rest of the year, that'll gradually get better. But some of it, I think, was the yips. I think he was just overhyped. There were a few overthrows that were like, that looks like a guy that's not a yip, like the first interception. That's I'm overhyped.
Yeah, you're hyped up. A lot of it is he's under tremendous pressure for a lot of that game, particularly in the first half. I got a lot of Patriots fans coming after me about his success in the fourth quarter. That's what happens when you have a commanding lead, which is what the Texans had in the second half of that game. Early in that game, he was under tremendous pressure. His receivers are terrible. I think it's hard to throw tight window passes to cover guys.
Some film people feel the receivers are reasonably good. It's the offensive line that's horrific.
Oh, the offensive line is horrific. I don't know who these some people are. Are they people in the Patriots?
I don't remember exactly which receiver, coach this guy or whatever that I've seen. But
yeah,
I mean, we don't know yet what Polk is. I think Demario Douglas is good.
You've been watching too much Patriots football if you think Demario Douglas is good. And I'll say
he was open a couple of times where May missed him. I mean, he was open over the middle and May was inaccurate.
Right. And I'll say this about young quarterbacks. Again, the throw to Boutte was impressive. The escapability is impressive, and that's going to continue. Young quarterbacks have escapability. Again, you Patriots fans, you watched Mac Jones.
Brady for a long time.
Brady, and then you saw Mac Jones. You don't know what a scrambler looks like, and this kid can scramble a little bit. It was fine. The problem is I can't evaluate a quarterback who was getting sacked, getting knocked down constantly. The running game was non-existent. Lots of penalties, particularly in the.
And I think he has overly happy feet, even when they were able to block for him. He would start scrambling really quick.
Yeah. How much trust would you have in those guys, even if they happen to do the job right? And you're young, and he was a little happy-footed in college.
Yeah.
But and again, before we get to Hitchhiker's Pie's question, lots and lots and lots of reps at the end. We're in the fourth quarter of a game that was pretty out of hand, where you're going to see him make some easier throws against the softer defense.
Yeah, there was a lot of 6-yard on 4th and 3 kind of stuff. May Hitchhiker's Pie says May has consistently had overthrow problems in practice per Lazar, and other beat reporters. So maybe that's a footwork problem rather than a I have the yips problem.
My worry remains he was very slow getting up after the strip sack.
Yep.
Slow getting up after a hit. Before that, he was already taking massive hits, and the offensive line is not getting any better. So if you're asking me, can he beat the Jaguars next week? Yeah, I think that team can go out there, run the ball, play defense, beat the Jaguars as they continue on their path to quitting. What happens if we talk about 5-6 weeks, better opponents, better pass rushes? Are we going to get this kid hurt? Are you going to create bad habits?
The other problem, is that their defense that I thought was going to be so good in the preseason has imploded. As they lose player after player to injuries or suspensions or whatever, that defense is bad now. And so that's, they're not going to do their over that I thought they were going to do. It's not going to happen.
No, I was looking at their over, and first of all, the juice on it's like minus 170. And secondly, the wins aren't there on the schedule.
Yeah. Spencer Rattler, I didn't see, but you did. So tell me what you think about. Obviously got some help from Rashid Shaheed punt return touchdown, got hurt by Olave fumbling a ball away for a touchdown. But, how was Rattler overall?
Yeah, he got helped by the fact that he was getting the ball like at the Buccaneers 30, like over and over again. Baker Mayfield was having a bad game. Saints defense was playing lights out. So Rattler was in this position where they could stay, on script, on schedule. He could do play action. He could do boot, roll out. They could get him scripted throws. He did okay in that situation. It's when they reached the point when the Buccaneers started to take over the game and he had to launch some kind of comeback and had to go deeper into the bag and make tougher throws, that the fact that Rattler is very much like a C-tier prospect reared its head. So it's almost like an opposite situation from May, where the Buccaneers took a big lead, but then because of Shaheed punt return, because of 2 turnovers, the Saints were back in that game. So they were able to play back and forth and rely on their running game more, and they've got many more weapons. So he got to kind of look better for most of the game than May did for the first 3 quarters.
I don't know if they have many more weapons. His main receiver was Bub Means.
Oh, well, Shaheed remains.
Olave went out early. That's the problem. Is Olave got injured early.
Olave got hurt. Rashid, he was throwing to Bub Means a lot. But they've got a better offensive line, even though they've had
better offensive line. Like, even though their offensive line has had injuries, there's no one as bad as the Patriots.
Yeah, there is a level below, like, my offensive line is bad. The Patriots are this place below that. So, the fact is, May is a legitimate quarterback of the future for our franchise. Whether or not he rises.
Right. I don't know whether Rattler is.
Rattler seems like one of these like Sam Howell guys who is like, well, if you put this and this and this and this and this and this, maybe he can get you through a year and you can start to believe in him. But I don't say it.
Yeah. Let's review the DVOA top dozen. Yes. We'll do the top dozen of DVOA. Number 12, dropping a little bit, is Washington.
Okay.
Number 11, still riding the first 2 weeks of the season, but clearly going way down, is New Orleans.
Yeah.
Number 10 is Atlanta.
Yeah, they're a fun, weird team right now.
And number 9 is Tampa Bay.
Yeah, no. I'm going to keep doing the joke. Like, oh, my God, we're so shocked by Tampa Bay. There's a dozen guys on the team with Super Bowl rings.
Yeah.
They won a playoff game last year. Why are we shocked by them every single time?
Number 8 is Green Bay.
Yeah, playing well.
Number 7 is Buffalo. We'll get to them in a second.
See what happens tonight.
Number 6 is Houston.
I hope there's a team that I hope I'm not going to hear in the top 5.
Number 5, despite a losing record, is San Francisco.
Okay, no, that makes sense, certainly.
Despite the losing record. Number 4 is Kansas City.
Okay.
Number 3, Baltimore.
Okay. 3, Baltimore.
Number 2, Detroit.
Yes.
And number 1, Minnesota, meeting next week.
Thank heavens the Seahawks are out of the top 12.
Seahawks are out of the top dozen at this point. Oh, yeah.
Wow. Saints were coming.
That was an early season thing, like the Saints. The 49ers are 3-3. Oh, they're 3-3. I made an error. I have to fix that.
Right. Big Thursday night win.
All right. Monday Night Football, Bills and Jets. Can I say I'm a little shocked that the Bills are only favored by 1 point here?
Agreed 100%.
The Bills are 7th right now in DVOA. The Jets are 20th before the season. I think we thought the Bills were better than the Jets. The Jets defense is only 21st against the run. I don't know if the Bills will run more with James Cook. The Jets offense is only 31st running the ball. Like, what happened to the super improved offensive line that was going to finally make holes for Breece Hall?
Right. I have no idea. And the Bills are a little more vulnerable against the run and run defense this year than they've been in past years, but I don't think the Jets can exploit that.
The Bills are allowing, here's interesting, a league low 25 yards a game to number one receivers.
Interesting.
But the Jets have like one great receiver. So
Yes.
Can Christian Benford, who's had a really good year this year, can he shut down Garrett Wilson? I mean, I have a feeling the answer is no, but he's been really good this year.
He's been really good, and it's shutting him down, and then there's getting enough pass rush pressure that you get the errant passes, the off-time passes. And again, we don't know what the play calling situation is for the Jets right now. I have a funny feeling it's Aaron Rodgers is calling the plays and has been all year.
The comments seem to feel like the line is a mix of the idea that Allen may not be recovered from the concussion that he didn't have.
That could be it.
And a little bit of that, we just fired the coach bounce for the Jets.
Which I don't know really applies for this team and their unique circumstances and their vibes. This looks like a game where the Bills should steamroll. There's no weather to talk about. It's going to be a cool, crisp night. Just a better balanced team. I'm not really as concerned about the Allen concussion has taken on this life of its own. I don't think it's going to be an impact tonight. And I have no faith in the Jets rallying under these current circumstances.
A couple of other interesting stats I found while looking at this game. The Jets defense so far is 32nd on passes up the middle.
Really?
Yeah, Allen's kind of average on those throws, but that's interesting, right? Because Knox and Kincaid.
Knox and Kincaid. Shakir available this week?
I think he's back.
I'm going to look at that real quick because I did space on that. I know I'm supposed to prepare for this show, but hold on one second. Khalil Shakir is waiting on baby press. Officially questionable.
Which means we don't know.
We don't know. Never mind.
We'll find out at 7 p.m.
Yeah. But that could make a difference if you're throwing over the middle. What else you got?
And the Jets offense, here's the thing. They rank in the 20s in the first 60 yards of the field, and then in the top 10 from the 40 on to the goal line.
I don't know what to make of that.
It seems like kind of random, right? But the Bills have struggled against the pass in the red zone this year.
Wow. That feels very random, but I feel like when they have gotten the ball around their own 20, the chances of there just being this sort of like listless 3 and out for the Jets.
Partly because the running game is not happening. Poor Breece Hall, free Breece Hall. Let's get him alive, right?
Free Breland Allen. He's a good back. He's looked pretty good. The offensive line should be better than that. Yeah, and you're right. Now you mentioned with no running game when you got to drive 80 yards and you need some kind of balance and sequence. It's hard.
Even in at MetLife, I like Bills -1. I like Bills -1.
Love it. Taking it. You get Bills -1, you take it in the NFL.
Yeah. All right, that does it for our show today. Thank you so much for everybody who's watching us live. Thank you to everybody who listens afterwards as a podcast. Please remember to like and subscribe to the show, review it, and tell your friends about it. We're here every Monday and Thursday at 11 a.m. Eastern, and then, on your favorite podcast app afterwards. We'll be back Thursday to preview Week 7, including the big DVOA Bowl between Detroit and Minnesota. Enjoy Monday Night Football, and we'll talk to you all later. So long, everybody.